Well, first, I want to thank everyone for joining us today on this webinar. I appreciate Walt and Pete for joining us as well. We're going to kind of just go over a little bit of what we've been doing with, PDX in the last few years as, GoodMaps has been working with them and really working on the accessibility of the airport and making sure people can navigate freely and with independence as well. I'll start off with just kind of intros from the panelists here. And I'll go ahead and start us off and we can go over to Walt and Pete. We've got Peter, our digital marketing for GoodMaps on the call, helping me out a little bit with making sure the teams is running well. But I'm Kevin Klein. I'm in the community engagement role here at GoodMaps and been with the team going on 3 years now. And I do a lot of work on the accessibility side of things with other blind individuals like myself. I also helped launch all of our North American airports and venues as well, really helping, work with the community, if you will, for each of our partners to make sure, one, that they know GoodMaps is there and also, how it works and why we're there as well. So really spreading the word of GoodMaps, if you will. As a user myself, I appreciate every airport, especially PDX, that puts us in their venue. Well,
Yeah, thanks everyone. My name is Walt Marchbanks. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Customer Programs and Services Manager at PDX. Most of my work at the airport is centered around the airport employee experience, but I also have the pleasure of chairing our Airport Accessibility Advisory Committee, which has roughly 40 members from across various organizations that support individuals with all types of disabilities, including the blind and low vision community. So really want to say thank you to GoodMaps for facilitating this discussion. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion we have today. So Pete, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Pete DeVasto. I'm a member of the PDX Accessibility Advisory Committee. I've been on it pretty much since it started, I think, and I've been doing a lot of work in various aspects of the design of the new construction, but the biggest and most exciting one I've worked with is GoodMaps. I continue to go out and test as things are being updated. I'm certainly an advocate of the product and want to do everything I can to help spread the word and help others realize how valuable the product is.
Well, I appreciate that, Pete. And before I start rambling, if you will, about GoodMaps, I want to just say if you all have any questions during the talk and the panel discussion, go ahead and throw those in the chat for us. If not, we're going to try and save a little bit of time at the end for any questions from the group as well. So we'd love to answer it, whether it's from the lived experience side, the airport side, or from the GoodMaps side as well. So a little background on GoodMaps. We really started for the blind and low vision out of the American Printing House for the Blind in Louisville, Kentucky. And American Printing House for the Blind is the world's largest braille distributor and other assistive tech. It's a nonprofit that really, had this goal in mind of making indoor spaces a little bit better for the blind and low vision. As somebody on my side of things, I lost my vision going on 7 years now. And really, once that happened, I didn't think that I could go, explore places by myself, navigate airports, universities, things like that. So it's really a crucial part. But we started that 2019, and really, it's a startup application. So we had a lot of work to do. And, we wanted to make sure that, one, we had the accessibility right. Two, it was a great experience as well. So we started for the blind low vision, but continued to add features, accessibility features for other individuals as well, including the neurodiverse individuals, deaf, low hearing. We have step-free routing for wheelchair users, things like that, and also 27 plus languages. And real quick to point out on the language side of things, just a story I have from doing these launches with airports and different events. My first time at PDX about 2 years ago, we did an event alongside the airport and other accessibility companies for White Cane Awareness Day. And it was my first experience, working with a blind individual that did not speak any English. And, I was a little nervous at first, but this was the first time I saw this language side of things, come into play. So I was able to, work with this individual. I didn't speak Spanish well. He didn't speak English well. And, we were able to get the app downloaded. And so he went off for about 45 minutes and came back with a translator and was very, ecstatic, if you will. He was very, happy to say, really, he had never been able to navigate by himself in the airport. There's language barrier, but also the accessibility needs. So that's just a, kind of a highlight real quick on PDX. I tell that to a lot of our different airport partners and like to spotlight that. But we come through. We have an application that's got these different features. We've got the audio commands, the turn-by-turn directions that I hear, and it's fully compatible with what's called VoiceOver and TalkBack. And these are programs that are already on the iPhone and Android that are meant for the blind and low vision. And so it's compatible with those. I'm hearing everything that I should, like an Apple Maps or a Google Maps. It's giving me those turn-by-turn directions. And it's also going to be in real time. So if I'm making the wrong turn, it's going to tell me turn around. It's going to, get me directly to where I need to go. Our accuracy since the start has, dramatically improved. I'm sure, Pete and I will get into this and whatnot, but, since the beginning, it is, improved dramatically in the fact that we can get you within a meter 100% of the time, normally within about a foot. And while you're in route, it has your position within 30 centimeters. And this accuracy is, crucial for those like myself who are white cane users. And going alongside that, we have haptics. So it's going to vibrate and let me know, when I'm off path. I'm not veering heavily like I do normally with my white cane, things like that. So really getting people on the right path. And for those, we have airports that use this for all types of different accessibility features, but we have the neurodiverse individuals really love those augmented realities we've added. So those arrows that really take you through the airport without having to communicate to others, worry about your surroundings as much. You can just follow those and get through and get to where you need to go. We also have added the extra text. So the directions I hear are also going to be on the screen for those who might be deaf, low hearing, things like that. And alongside that, we have the step-free routing for those who might be in wheelchairs or with strollers, luggage, any mobility challenges they might have. That's going to take you, to the nearest elevator or the best elevator on that route if you're changing floors. And wrapping that up is those 27 languages that we keep adding to each quarter. We want to make sure we're adding, as we're an international company, we want to keep adding as many languages as possible. And those are, done through a combination of AI and also individuals confirming that is correct. The AI is about 92% accurate on that. And then it is confirmed by an individual afterwards. So we have these great features that are, it's free for all users to download. But it's, for the venues themselves, like PDX, we do this without any infrastructure. So we came in, at the very beginning, which we're going to talk on, how long ago that was. As PDX was one of our first airports, we're up to 40 now as of last week, and PDX has been there since the beginning. But we come in and we scan the airport using LiDAR. And what we do with that is we come back to Louisville, Kentucky. We have our, mapping team create the map. And once that map is created, we're, training our machine learning on that for your positioning. And that's how it's getting your positioning within that 30 centimeter range. And so once we do that, we're going to launch the application live, make sure that people are, ready to go with it publicly. And we do a lot of different events. We want to make sure we're, bringing out the community for community days, for GAD Day, for Global Accessibility Day, White Cane Awareness Day, making sure that people know that the app is available. And this is really where I love my job. I get to really come out to all of our partners' sites and meet other blind individuals, meet deaf individuals, meet anyone that wants to try out the app. And, it could be accessibility leaders, people without accessibility needs that are, checking it out for a family member, whatever it might be. And being able to say, you can walk in that door, you can get dropped off in your Uber and go all the way to security, go through security, go all the way to your gate without having to have assistance. And that's our goal is, the independent side of things. So being able to, let the media know, let the community know, and then continue to engage with them after the fact. So we want to make sure that people know that's available, whether they're traveling in or traveling out of PDX in our other airports. So being able to spread the word, get on the accessibility calls such as this, making sure that people know how it's supposed to work. And so from the, blind side of things, if you will, I know we'll talk about this in a little bit with Pete, but we really don't have that opportunity to navigate. We might have the best mobility skills. That doesn't mean I know where I'm going. As I like to say, if someone may know how to drive a vehicle down the highway, that doesn't mean you know the best way to drive to Portland or the safest, whatever it might be. So we're here to make sure that independence is there as well for those who might need it. On that side of things, for the venue gets the opportunity to edit their maps. So Portland's actually been able to, work with us to have opportunities to use Studio. GoodMaps Studio has been a newer tool in the last couple of years to where you can edit your maps. And this gives you the opportunity to, change McDonald's to Burger King in a matter of seconds, edit all 27 languages. We've actually added for the experience for, our users, we've added descriptions that can be edited. So this means, the restaurants at the airport can be added into the map. So under each point of interest, it might have a link to the menu, hours for ticketing desks, things like that, and being able to edit that in real time if something goes down. For instance, escalators, elevators tend to go down pretty quickly in a large station or airport, and those are able to be disabled in seconds. And you just have to refresh your page and go on with your day. So really being able to edit that in real time to make sure that, someone like me who may not go to Portland often, I might land and go on my way. I don't want to be taken to the wrong elevator that's broken and I don't know that or disabled. So that's, crucial in the routing side of things, but also, if you're closing down a restaurant, things like that, you don't have people just navigating and wondering why they can't get in. So being able to edit that for the users, but also make it to where the airport doesn't have to wait as long on our side as well to edit that. A couple new things that we've added here recently and that are being added in the future. So my favorite feature has been added back to our newest app, and it's called Look Around. So Look Around is huge for the blind and low vision. It's helpful for others as well, but for me, it virtually gives me the opportunity to have eyes, if you will. It sounds a little elementary, but I can walk into PDX, pull up Look Around, and just go on my way, and it's going to announce every point of interest that we have mapped on my screen. It's going to have audio and also icons pop up. So being able to know, I can just explore during my layover. I might not know which coffee shop I want to go to or what's nearest my gate. It just gives me the opportunity to do that in a quicker manner because we do have, a directory with a new search functionality, and that's great. But I want to be able to explore like anyone else that has sight. Just kind of almost bringing it to where I don't have a hurdle when I'm traveling. Being able to have that confidence while navigating or just exploring the airport has been awesome. Of course, this can help low vision individuals as well that may be able to see some, but not all the way down that terminal. So it's going to be able to show what's going to be ahead of you on that screen as well, and with the interactive maps. And people, some of our airports as well add this to their website. We have interactive maps on there, but it doesn't have the full accessibility features as our application. We do this kind of to have everyone have an opportunity to use our product. And another thing that we've added for the venue specifically to update is what's called mobile scan. So if you have, say 30,000 square foot of remodeling or construction, and you need that to be added to the map, you can actually now do that on an iPhone Pro. And that's going to give the, airport the ability, as we know, all airports seem to kind of have construction all the time, if you will. I know, with Portland, we worked with them for 5 years, I think a 5-year plan, Walt, and we were able to really plan out when we're going to need rescans, things like that. And now this is going to give us the opportunity to do some of that remotely. So, someone on the facility side can scan a smaller space and be able to send it to our team. Now, of course, if it's a whole terminal, if it's 100,000 square foot, we're still going to need to come out and scan, and we can schedule that with the airport like we have with PDX. One thing that I always bring up with PDX is that I know at some point there was a lot of the baggage claim ceiling that was ripped out. and during construction, things like that. And we were able to still get a position with about 60 to 70% resiliency to change, which has been crucial because we don't always want to have to stop being able to navigate people through spaces that are changing. But one of those are a few things we've added, but one of the newest things that we're adding in the near future that's being worked on right now, that's very, very much for the accessibility side of things, is emergency notifications. So if something is coming up in the airport and you want to let someone know that's navigating that might not be able to, communicate as easily, say a deaf individual, or if you have screens that have announcements on it that I can't read as a blind individual, these are going to pop up through the app or the website because that individual has been using the app. So, that's going to be able to be put in certain APIs and whatnot to be sent those notifications out to a user. So if I need to know something important is happening in the airport, then I will be able to have that functionality without someone knowing to come find me or whatnot. So that's going to be something that we've been working out with a few airports, that all of our airports, including PDX, will be able to have access to if they want it. And, it's just really good added accessibility, if you will. And, once we do all of that launching and whatnot, we still want to continue partnerships like this. And, with that being said, I really want to hear a little bit from Walt. Walt's been our champion, if you will, not just at PDX, but really helping us with other airports, as we know the seamless travel is, crucial. It doesn't, start or end with PDX. If you're flying out, you're flying to another airport. So being able to have, someone like him assist us on that, making sure that travelers through Portland are going to be able to have a, great independent experience in other places has been awesome. But I would kind of like to, start the conversation up here with, you've been one of our first airports, if not first, second. It was around before I was around, if you will. Why and what made you want to work with this new startup, in the airport space and really in the accessibility space at that point, not even in the airport space yet? I'm sure there's a lot of question marks, and why start this journey with us at the very beginning?
Well, yeah, thanks, Kevin. I guess I'd start by saying that accessibility is a strategic priority for us, and the airport's commitment to accessibility really precedes my time with the organization. I've been with the port for about 15 years, and we think about things like having light rail coming right to the entrance of the airport itself, which is great. Take you right downtown. We have rental cars that are walking distance from the terminal. That's something that a lot of airports our size don't have. They have to take a shuttle bus to a consolidated rental car facility. We have moving sidewalks inside the terminal because we sort of prioritize things like choice and independence and autonomy. And as part of our kind of universal design principles, if you will, it's just really important to us to create a space where everyone feels welcome and everyone belongs. And people don't have to feel like they need to rely on another person if they don't have to. And ultimately, we recognize and acknowledge that a lot of people need assistance to navigate the airport. But if we can provide another layer of choice, then it's important to us. And, if we were to go back and look at our initial discussions with GoodMaps, they started in 2018. When I went back and looked at the history of our accessibility advisory committee, yeah, Pete's been on it since the very beginning. He's been on the ride since day one, really. If you want to think of it that way. And our accessibility advisory committee was sort of built out of this construction that we're currently going through, right? We had some members of our citizens advisory committee, another public advisory committee that we have at the airport. And they said, hey, what's the airport doing to think about the needs of individuals with disabilities? And how do we want to prioritize that and make sure that their voices and their needs are included in the design and the construction that we're kind of going into this period of massive disruption, right? And the partnership with GoodMaps actually was something that got brought up by one of our accessibility advisory committee's members, Amy Parker with Portland State University. So Amy reached out to us and said, hey, airport, we've got this great technology over here. They're doing a little pilot with us, and we'd love to have you come out and take a look at it. So myself, Pete, and another member of our IT team went out to PSU, and we experienced the technology and said, wow, this is pretty cool. We did a route, we navigated around the campus, and we thought it was a really neat thing. Had conversations with Evelyn, who's with GoodMaps, and a couple other folks at the time, and really thought, hey, this is kind of a neat thing. So we brought it back to our accessibility advisory committee and got more feedback and more input on it. And ultimately, our first step was doing a pilot. So we started off by mapping Concourse D, and over time, Concourse D expanded to Concourse D and E. And then a couple of years ago, we expanded to include the entirety of the airport campus, which includes all of the concourses, the baggage claim area, the route to the rental car center itself, and everything in between. And, it's been great. Now we've got hundreds of destinations that are mapped across the airport campus. Because of the size of our map, we have a pre-security map and a post-security map. So it just makes it a little easier to triangulate your location and make sure you know where you're at. But ultimately, it's been a great thing for us. And, we've gotten great feedback from the community that has used it. Like Kevin mentioned, you mentioned earlier, you came out for our White Cane Safety Day event. Yeah, we're working on facilitating an event for Global Accessibility Awareness Day as well. And the app and the service and the solution has really improved over time based on feedback that we've had, right? We've worked really closely together. I will say that when the technology was new, it had some room for improvement, right? I think we can all agree on that. But when we entered into our partnership with GoodMaps, we saw the potential of what it was capable of becoming. We knew that it was going to get better over time. We knew that it was going to iterate and become a better solution. And ultimately, that feedback that we've been able to filter to your team, that you've been really receptive to taking on, and we work really closely with your innovation team, your tech team, and I think that we've really worked well together, and we've kind of iterated on some of the challenges that have happened. And yeah, Pete has come out on numerous occasions and experienced the technology, and it's been great to have him involved in it as well. But the real-time updates, we actually just experienced the self-scan this past week. So it's great to see that firsthand. And I do think that that's going to be a really great tool for mapping certain areas. Just this past week, we opened up a new route that goes from Concourse C to Concourse B. We had a construction bypass. We have a new bypass that's going to take you from Concourse D to Concourse E in early March. So the airport's still going to be under construction pretty heavily for the next several months. And as that evolves, and we have like a new concessions that's going to open up, right? We don't need to have GoodMaps fly out and map with a LiDAR scanner. We can do some of these smaller mapping efforts on our own with the iPhone Pro. So it's really going to help with those real-time updates that need to happen without needing to have a mapping team come out. And again, the service is cloud-based, so it's great to not have to necessarily have any infrastructure, weigh up any server space, or do anything from that perspective as well. So, and ultimately, what we've seen is, just better navigation inside the terminal. I will say that, GoodMaps is part of a broader wayfinding and terminal wayfinding strategy that we have at the airport. We have a terminal map on our public website that isn't powered by GoodMaps, but GoodMaps is another tool. And ultimately, the more we can provide, the more resources we can provide to enhance the airport experience, the better. And we found great value out of that for people with, disabilities, people with temporary health conditions, right? You may have sprained your ankle and now you're getting around on crutches. Well, your experience is going to be different than it was when you were traveling without your temporary injury. So those types of things. And again, neurodivergent travelers, giving them some certainty on their experience, helping them navigate from point A to point B with a degree of certainty, the augmented reality aspects of the program and platform, they've all really improved it. And the feedback that we've gotten has been inherently positive. So I will say that it's been a really great partnership that we've had with GoodMaps. We also acknowledge that, an app works well and works best when it can be used in multiple places, right? So if you have GoodMaps and, you download the app and you can use it now at 40 airports, it has more value than if you can download it and use it at 2, or you can download it and use it at 1. And I've seen that same experience happen with like the Sunflower Lanyard program is a great example. We started with the Sunflower Lanyard program around the same time as we started with GoodMaps. And at the time, I want to say the Sunflower Lanyard was in 20 major US airports. Now it's in well over 100 major US airports. So if people are using a solution or a technology that they can take from place to place, it just compounds the value of that solution. And ultimately, people have more value because they know that they can utilize it in more places. So selfishly, the more we can evangelize the work and the more airports get involved with this, the more powerful and the more useful the tool is for the travelers and employees and everyone else that utilize it. So That's something I wanted to kind of add to the mix, Kevin.
Definitely. Well, I really appreciate that, Walt. And, I kind of want to point on a couple of things there. Even myself, say 3 years ago, when I first used the app, I thought it was the best thing ever because I had, just lost my vision recently in the last few years and things like that. And I quickly learned, well, we've got some improvements we can make. And seeing those come to life, being able to try those with our oldest, some of our oldest venues, such as PDX has been great because getting into this with Pete shortly, but for the users, but also seeing the venues notice the changes because as a startup technology company, it's not perfect, right? Nothing's perfect, but being able to work towards that every quarter, every year, working alongside partners like Walt and the PDX team to be able to really make sure that the users are involved in some of those decisions, feedback, all of that good stuff. So really being able to do that. And as you had mentioned, you've got the mapping program that you already have, and you have other accessibility programs. We have some airports that have that, and we also have some that use GoodMaps as their total one and all. And both are great, but I always it's kind of in the shadows, if you will. I point out, I get asked this question at every conference I'm at for aviation and even others. What's the most accessible airport? It's not really a question. PDX has been that for me since I was there the first time a couple of years ago. The reason for that is because they've put in, the effort of, saying, we'll help this group, but not this group, or vice versa. Being able to say we have the resources to be able to have all this different technology, to have the Sunflower, to have, make sure you're meeting with the accessibility groups every quarter, whatever it might be, having the opportunity to go for it. And, I go to different places quite often, and there's certain places that probably don't even use the word accessibility. That was me for 23 years, right? And it's always good to see the venues, especially airports, that are putting it first and having the openness to work with any organization as possible. And so, without maybe everybody knowing it, I always hype you up in the background a little bit, and wish I could travel more through Portland than I can. But really appreciate that. And I know one thing I want to just quickly touch on. You covered most of it, but how was one the transition in? Obviously the app was improving, but also the construction at the same time. You all have redone a lot, and mixing that with the app, changing at the same time. Was that process as hard as it sounds?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it really boils down to communication and partnership, right? I mean, the milestones, the changes are known within the construction schedule. So communicating with GoodMaps and just letting them know, hey, this is when things are going to change. This is how it's going to change. When we had our construction bypass that changed over, GoodMaps was actually able to take the drawings that we had and make some preliminary changes before we could even get them into the system. So, ultimately, it really kind of boils down to communication. And, we acknowledge that sometimes there's going to be smaller changes. And previously, we didn't have the ability to kind of pivot quickly with small changes that happen, like a concessionaire, changing or closing. But the studio changes have really improved that. And I do think that the self-scan is really going to make some improvements on the additional sort of ad hoc changes that happen a little bit more quickly between scans as well. So I will say that, like, ultimately it just really boils down to communication and partnership. And if you're able to partner with the venue and you're able to make sure that you've got transparency and communication around construction milestones, then you don't have to fear change. I mean, change can be a scary thing for people. It can be a really scary thing for everyone. But ultimately, if you're communicating early and often about the change, if you're being really open and transparent about what those changes are going to be, and you can work really closely with your IT partners, including GoodMaps, then there's really nothing to be afraid of. We just need to work through it together. And ultimately, it's been a good success from that end. And I'm confident that our upcoming changes, including the changes to our new terminal exits, which are happening in April, our new exit lanes, which are also happening in April, and of course, other changes that are going to happen along the way, that we're going to be able to work through those, and the maps are going to be able to be updated in real time. So, yeah, to that end, I think it's fair to be kind of trepidatious about that, but with enough communication and partnership, anything's possible, really.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate that. And I think, it's really helped us on the back end as well as a company. From the beginning to now, working with airports like Portland, but also rail like Sound Transit, other milestones, if you will, for us, but also being in a good way hard on us, keeping us to what we should have been doing at that time, making sure that we're on top of things, and it's created the fact of now we've got airports signing because they're in construction, which is really cool to hear. We know that's a hard time for you all, especially, and then making sure that the users like Pete and I can get through that at the same time is crucial. So making sure that all of those parts are kind of moving simultaneously, but we kind of learned that from working with you all and other day one partners, if you will. Pete, I'm going to run over to you now and kind of want to talk blind man to blind man, if you will, a little bit. What are some thoughts you have, some points you want to point out on being a blind individual that travels or goes through the airport with and without technology? I mean, you've said it, Walt said it, you've been here for a while and you've seen the growth from PDX and technology, including GoodMaps, of course, but being able to just do stuff on your own. I know my thoughts on that. We can talk about that a little bit, but I'd love to hear from you on that side of things.
Well, thanks, Kevin. It is really the feeling of having the independence is wonderful. In the past, both at PDX and when I've gone to other airports, which I did a lot of traveling on business alone, you walk into an airport and it's just a big empty area. There's a lot of noise, people and other things. And you have to figure out, first of all, where you are. Then you've got to figure out, how am I going to find the ticket counter? So you wander around and you maybe listen for clues to try to figure out something. And hopefully some nice person will come over and show you what's going on. The airlines have always had ways to get assistance, but you have to do it in advance. And even if you do, you have to wait for it. So bottom line is it's a very frustrating experience, or was a very frustrating experience whenever I would travel. I mean, you do it because you have to, and you have to allow plenty of time so that everything goes without a hitch. Once GoodMaps came on, it's one of these things where I can load the app before I even get to the airport. And so when I get out and I'm at the door, I can turn on GoodMaps. It figures out where I am. And I'll say, let's say I want to go to the Alaska Airlines ticket counter. I will just type in the first couple of letters and it will show me the particular counter I want. I double tap it and it creates a route for me and I can just, walk to it. On the other end of the deal, when I come back, or if I'm going into a strange airport, if it does happen to have GoodMaps, I can already have GoodMaps running on the phone. So when I get off the plane and I get through the jetway and into the gate, I can just tap it and say, okay, where am I and how do I get where I want to go? It's just really, really invaluable. And now the new features with, look around and everything else, it's really great, because even before I go to an airport, if I know I'm going to an airport that has GoodMaps, I can load that airport's map in and I can do a search. And let's say I know I'm going to have a layover, so maybe I'm going to want to get something to eat. So I can type in a certain category. Let's say, like, I love pizza. So I can type pizza in, and if there are any pizza places at the airport, it'll tell me where where they are. And so when I get to the airport, I can tell GoodMaps, okay, this is where I want to go, take me there. And it'll help with ground transportation, and everything else. So it's the autonomy is just it's really great. You just know that you don't have to wait, which is such a frustrating experience sometimes.
Yeah, and I want to point out, one thing you said that I'd mentioned yet, but it's big for us as users, and really people that travel with anxiety or other may get just nervous, elderly individuals. You can view all of our public maps before you get there, remotely from your couch. So I could be sitting here in Nashville, Tennessee, but I know I'm flying to PDX. I want to grab a coffee as soon as I get there, or go straight to pre-security. I can make that a favorite on that page of the map. So on the home page of each map, you can add favorites. So I've got, for instance, here at my home airport, I've got, I think I've got the restroom, I've got pre-security, and Chick-fil-A, I think are all my first favorites on the app. But, that's been a big thing to know, if you're traveling across, the country as, someone who may not work for GoodMaps like myself, but you want to use the accessibility features, you can view that before you go. You can know, well, if I'm flying to Texas, I can use it in Brownsville, Austin, and soon others. But you can always look that up. You can view what destinations are there, so you can go through the whole directory, and you can know which terminal that McDonald's is in or Starbucks, whatever it might be. But having that opportunity to kind of be prepared, because I know when I first took this job, one of the first things that I was asked was, "Are you ready to travel?" I said yes, and I was not. I was I was not at all. But I was, you got to figure it out, and being able to kind of take that experience to a lot of these airports and say, well, this is actually what can help us, and being able to not have that nervousness of traveling. And so now I'm excited to travel because I get to use GoodMaps every week at VNA, and if I'm flying to one of our partner sites, things like that. So really, it's obviously giving us the independence, but it's giving us a little excitement and freedom. I look at in 2018, at the beginning of 2018, I had perfect vision. Obviously, I'm not going to have perfect vision while having GoodMaps, but it's going to give me the ability to have the opportunity to do things in an airport like PDX that I already could do before. It's almost like I'm always comparing what I can do now to what I used to be able to. So I don't necessarily need to see what's around me as long as I can get to what I'm trying to get to. And being able to get to that restaurant to sit down and have a meal, things like that, or get to that restroom in a quick manner, things like that. But from the user side of things, I know I've seen it in the last 3 years. I'm sure you've seen it in the last 6 or 7. What's it been like to work with Walt and the team and us in making the app better? I remember 3 years ago when I was so excited, it was taking 7 seconds to get my position, and I thought that was great. Now it might take 2. So what's it been to work with the GoodMaps team and Walt to make the app better for us and more accessible, but not even more accessible, more efficient,
I'm
and
going to
also what it looks like now.
I'm going to echo what Walt said. I mean, the most important part about this whole process is communication, cooperation. And the one thing that I have to say about the Port of Portland team is that they're just, they're very responsive. They want to listen. They want to know. And if even it comes to the point where I have to maybe go out and show them some things or try some things, they really want to know. And if you have that kind of cooperation and communications, it's not going to fail because if you try it the first time and it's not right, they want to find out, okay, why isn't it right? What can we do to make it better? So they will go back to GoodMaps and we just working together. That's really what makes this whole thing happen. And I'm very, very proud of what the airport has done. And it really does. I've used it to get to different places. I have not traveled lately, but I will be shortly. And I'm looking forward to using GoodMaps to be able to just get me in, get me to my gate, get me to where I need to go.
Definitely, definitely. Is there anything you want to see from us? Any new features? I know one thing that I want to see, and it's going to be asked every time that I'm at a conference for accessibility is wearables, right? So, we're going to continue to keep on adding things in the future like that. But yeah, I mean, I always I want to hear from the users, but also I want to hear from our development team, see what they got cooking too. So, being able to know that's on their radar in the future is awesome. But
I am not sure. Oh, I guess as far as anything new that I would want to see added, sure, off the top of my head on the spot, I can't think of a thing. There's just so many good things. The only one thing I do think about is, and it may already be there and I might have missed it, is to be able, when you go in and do a search, sometimes it's not as easy to type some text, but there should be a dictate button where you can dictate like food or pizza, or if there's a particular place to dictate it in, and then have it accept that way, just in case you can't type on the keyboard easily. That would be the only thing I can think about offhand, and that may already be there.
I love to hear that. Yeah, we've actually been working on that search, and there's a now dictation, and then there's also the smart search that you had kind of touched on earlier. Is being able to type in or dictate something similar to what you want, it's still going to know.
Yeah.
So having that AI power behind it is, because sometimes I'm not as smart as AI, right? Sometimes I don't know what I'm spelling right.
And sometimes AI doesn't get it right either.
Exactly. But having that good combination between the user and the smart search has been great. I actually have been messing with it recently, and I'm excited to fly out Monday and try it out in real life, as it's came out in the last couple of weeks. So that's been that was a new surprise from our development team that I was, as a user, very excited about, because I like to do things quick. I like to get to the airport. I want to go to go through security, and then I want to find breakfast. I want to do that as soon as possible. I don't want to have to wait around and make sure I get the search correctly and all that. Exactly. So being able to do that efficiently has been awesome. As for right now, I want to show, if we can, Peter, a quick clip. This is slightly sped up, but it's just a clip of what the app sounds like and looks like from a user's side of things.
Slowly pan your phone to the left or right. Move forward. Slight move forward. Continue.
And this is me going from outdoors to indoors of an airport as well.
Opening
so
ahead.
Being able to get that position whenever I get dropped
Slight
off.
left. Entrance H ahead. Door ahead. Continue 105 feet, then turn left. Continue 55 feet, then turn left.
The phone up. That's actually something we've improved, and where you don't have to hold the phone.
Turn left. Move forward a few steps. Right to destination.
The one thing that impresses me about it so much is that it tries to be really very precise as you're following a route, and you can also tell it to slight left or slight right, and it also gives you different ways to orient yourself. Like if you're used to like orient something on a clock face, it'll say this is at 10 o'clock instead of slightly to your left. It's just extra added convenience, so that whatever way you're used to navigating or being told how to navigate, you can go to it right away.
Exactly. We try to add have as many customizable features as we can. One thing with that, like, we don't have logins, for security reasons. We're, anonymous and all that good stuff. But we also, if you have the app downloaded on your phone, you can have, favorites and recents, and then you can have contrast changes. You can have that 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, or slight left, slight right. And these are things that we want to keep on adding as well. We do a lot of UAT testing. We have a great researcher out of Ball State University who works with our team, and she does a lot of testing with different disabilities, and we want to make sure we're adding the right customizable options, and have a good balance of, yes, for the venue it's great, but also for the user itself, for someone like Peter, myself, or anyone out there that might use us. We'll make sure that they can create their own experience if they'd like. Somebody who might be low vision but may not be blind and need all that sound coming out, they can maybe turn that off. All this good stuff, and we're working on actually selecting or adding new options for routes in the near future. Right now, it says avoid stairs or walking directions. So we're looking at maybe adding or changing names of those just off of some testing that we've done. But there's, a lot of good stuff that we can add, change to what's already there. I know that's one thing that I've learned since going blind, and, accessibility and especially technology. I joke with people, saying if you're going to go blind, it's a great time to do it. That's maybe not correct, but there's a lot of technology that can help us, but it always needs improvement, right? So there's always something we can do better. And as technology gets better, we can do the same. So I'm really excited to see what's in the future for GoodMaps and for PDX and for the airports around the globe now. I think we're in 12 countries with 40 airports and 20 states with airports, I believe, coming up. And then, really just trying to grow as much as we can, including the rail systems throughout the world, universities, city centers, arenas, we want to make sure it's just an accessible experience. We've been heavily pushed on aviation the last year because in our mind that can be the beacon of accessibility in the community. I know it has been here in Nashville and in Portland, to where people from different universities and buildings here in Nashville are now going to the airport to try, GoodMaps because they've heard about it and they want to make sure that they can kind of keep up. And so I think Portland's probably the same, and where they are that beacon of light, if you will, beacon without beacons, no beacons in the airport, but they can be the beacon in the community. With that, I want to, ask Peter if there's any questions in the chat. But before that, if there's any, any other words that Walt, Pete, you all have and want to say before we dig into any questions there might be from the audience.
Kevin, I've got just a couple more things I wanted to add. I will say that, our airport is beloved by the community that we serve, and PDX is a microcosm of that community, and we take our role really seriously at the airport. We're serious, but we're also a little irreverent. We're kind of a fun place to be, a fun place to work, and that's just part of who we are as an airport. So I will also say that the airport community is close-knit, and we talk to each other and we share best practice all the time, and we're all kind of working to improve. And the way I've always perceived it is that we have a responsibility to advocate for things like accessibility and to leverage our privilege, if you will, right? To take our brand and our reputation and to use that to help further work like accessibility, to help make airports more accessible and improve the airport experience across the entire country and world. Really, at the end of the day, we have a unique position to celebrate and share best practice with our airport peers, and also, to your point, right, to not just airport peers, but also to other venues in the broader community. So, like, for example, we work closely with Live Nation. We work closely with the Providence Park team and with our friends at the Moda Center and others within the broader environment. So having partners on the Accessibility Advisory Committee that aren't just necessarily in the airports, but are also governmental partners, like the Portland Bureau of Transportation, for example. So there are a lot of other kind of connections there that we can work with to try to share best practice, not just within the airport community, but across the broader landscape. So that's just all stuff that's kind of important to call out again. The last thing I want to point out is you had mentioned earlier that, PDX, PDX has more than one mapping solution, but GoodMaps is a great solution for airports. A lot of airports don't have a mapping team, right? Don't have a team that manages their maps. You recently launched in Eugene. I actually just took a look at Eugene's airport. Eugene is actually using your API, so they have the GoodMaps interactive map on their website as well. So it's a cool thing for airports that don't necessarily have a dedicated mapping team. This can be their mapping source of truth. This can create an interactive mapping experience. So question here in the chat, Brian, just popped up. Is there any mapping in the restrooms? So Kevin,
No,
you want to speak to that?
Yeah,
No.
we don't map out the actual restrooms indoors, so we can get you within that, foot or so of the opening or the doorway. As you can imagine, there's a few different security risks on that for the inside of the restrooms, and we don't want any problems. But one thing you can do in the map, and we've started to see this with other venues, is adding, just a couple of hints or a couple of pointers for people like myself or Peter in the restroom. So say, under the men's accessible restroom, it might say, stalls to the left, sinks to the right, or, something like that. So there's a way to add a little detail under that point of interest, but no, we do not map the inside of the restroom.
All right, great. Other questions in the chat? One from Kevin, or excuse me, from Douglas Hyman. What gear do y'all use LiDAR-wise, and what can that do for all you versus facilitating using iPhones? Wondering if PDX in similar places could have the same gear, the Leica scanners, Kevin, that y'all bring out. And then the second question is around CTAC utilizing GoodMaps and thinking about kind of a more regional approach there. Why isn't CTAC using GoodMaps? Good question for your development team, probably, and that type of thing. So,
definitely. So on these scanners, we do use Leica, but we also are using, some very micro images. They're not not pictures by any means, but they're taking the geography of the walls, making that point cloud as well. So, we can use LiDAR scans to assist, but we also still need to come out and do the scan on property, because there's different techniques that we use to get, the map correct and the camera-based positioning as well. So yes and no. So you can use any, we can always use LiDAR scans that are already at the facility to assist us, but we still need to come on property for those large scans. Why CTAC is not? We are actually, I've had some great conversations with their team. I was actually, in the area recently and was able to talk to them. Hopefully in the future, I know they've got a lot of different things going on right now.
Okay. And then another question here from Mike Coleman. Are there particular technical breakthroughs that made GoodMaps possible now? And what prevented them from emerging sooner?
Yeah, I think, actually before I started, and I'm not sure if they were ever up at PDX, but for instance, when we started, beacons were a big thing. And I know a lot of mapping companies still use them. And then there's some companies that are only for the blind low vision that use them. But, as time, I don't think it took too long to realize that we needed to get away from beacon. One, they're, annoying, I think, to kind of keep up with. There's so much installation, making sure that they're up to date and all that good stuff, but also the accuracy wasn't there. So we, went into the computer or camera-based positioning and really starting to, as the technology evolved, as the back end machine learning evolved, we also created our own positioning platform. We've got patents on that. So as our team evolved, so does our technology, and so does the technology on the back end as well. So, I don't want to get into the technicals because I don't have all the technicals, but I will say that as the technologies evolved, not even just for GoodMaps, but for, the blind users of the world, I could take a picture of, the whole room that I'm in right now, and it's going to tell me every detail. That wasn't possible a few years ago. So, as technology evolves, so are we, being able to work with different APIs to automatically turn off escalators now, at certain rail stations we have, if they're down. Just a lot of things that technology is working together that's improved, so are we. And we're going to try and keep up with that as well as it continues to happen.
Yeah. I mean, my wife has an 8-year-old laptop, Kevin, and it makes a great paperweight these days. I'll put it that way, right? The technology has evolved tremendously. I even think about our TSAQ wait time solution. When we embarked on that journey, it's a LiDAR-based solution as well. We started on that journey pre-pandemic, and when we finally got around to installing it several years later with construction, the LiDAR technology had improved immensely. So I want to suggest or recommend that we think about the just advances in overall technology, the improvements in LiDAR, the improvements in computing, all of those things I'm sure have been contributing factors to the improvement of the technology. And I also think that GoodMaps has a brilliant person behind their technology, their tech stack, a gentleman named Charlie, who is very thoughtful and intelligent and identifying ways to improve things. Pete probably remembers this. The battery, it used to consume a lot more battery on the phone at the beginning. Pete would basically need a battery bank with him, right, as he was kind of working through that. But all those things, have just like really improved, I think, just through innovation, and we've seen a tremendous amount of improvement on our end too. So
I knew a quick thing on the LiDAR scanners. When we first switched over to LiDAR, these scanners looked like a Ghostbuster backpack type of deal. Just a ridiculously sized. From what I've been explained, now we're looking at little scanners that are about the size of a thermos. So, it's almost as technology gets better, things get smaller, which is sometimes a great thing when you're talking about Ghostbuster backpacks. So, it's really cool to hear those stories of before my time at GoodMaps and what we've gotten to now as well. Have any other questions from anyone out in the audience or in the chat? Well, I will take that as a no, but I really appreciate everyone.
Hold on. Whoa, hang on. Hold your horsies. We got, do you have any examples to share where GoodMaps is in use at a government location, such as a state capitol, for example?
Yes. So actually in a couple different countries as well. We've got, state here in Nashville, actually, we have a state library and archives building. We've got a Metro Hall, I believe, in Louisville. We've got Parliament building in Canada, things like that. So we've got a few different ways to go around that. We've, made sure that our security protocol is up to scale on that as well. So we can definitely work with city, state, and federal buildings on that note.
Kevin, nothing else, I think. Unless
All
somebody
right,
has anything last minute.
I don't want to jump the gun here.
That's all right.
All right. Well, I appreciate Pete and Walt for you all hopping on and talking with me today, and everyone else that joined from the webinar as well. I hope that you're able to learn a little bit more about PDX and what they're doing with GoodMaps, and especially on the accessibility side, because that's a lot of times that's an afterthought. So appreciate PDX and the team at GoodMaps too for putting accessibility first and then growing off of that. So I appreciate everyone on the call, and I hope you all have a great weekend as well.